Hey, Sharon, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thanks, Luann. I'm thrilled to be here.
I just looked at the clock. I knew we were talking. I didn't know we spent an hour talking before I hit record. That's pretty crazy pants right there.
But so fun, so delicious.
That's good. I really thought it was about a half hour. And then as I was saying hi to you, I'm like, wait a second, this was 3:30 we started this. Well, you guys are in for a treat because that hour went like nothing. And This is a great this is going to be a great conversation, Sharon. You have a superpower that I have just spent an hour picking it apart. And now I'm going to pick it apart for all of our colleagues. And the thing is, it centers in you help business owners figure out their vision for their business that also aligns with their life. And I know it's a lot deeper than that. I know there's a lot more involved in it, but that seems to be the core of where you begin your work. And, look, it's so funny. It's a big joke. In my first book, I wrote the first chapter. You have to know your mission, vision, and core values. And I can't tell you the number of people like, yeah, skip that chapter. And I'm just like, well, that's great, sweetie. But how are you making your decisions every day if you don't know what you want to be, who you are, where you want to go, right? But I do know that it is a struggle for each of us to do that, especially for ourselves. So start us out, Sharon. What do you want to set a stage with this conversation? Do you want to go right into how you help people do it? Like you
Yeah.
start us off.
So let's pick up with the listeners who are like, yeah, but I did skip that chapter and you haven't convinced me yet to go back. So I'm talking to you, dear listeners. So mission and values tend to be easier for us to connect to. And here's why. They're more tactical and less scary. Mission, what is it that I'm doing? And the values, what matters to me. Now, that's a little
Mhm.
scarier than what I do, but still less scary than for the sake of what, which is vision, right?
Mm.
Vision is this really big question where we are laying out there, what do I really want? If I could dare to dream and hold the possibility that what I want is possible. And yes, I really believe that it is, but it sure isn't going to happen if you don't believe that you can have it. So
Mm.
I think the power of looking at mission is you can name what you do and for whom, and values, you're making sure that your decisions are lining up with what is actually important to you, not just at face value, but what you actually truly care about. That's the value. And the vision is helping us say, and I can dare to hold all of that moving towards something that really inspires me, that makes me say, yes, this is the dreamy thing that makes me want to get up in the morning and go to work.
Right. Because it is that part. It's the carrot,
Yeah.
right? It's we're saying what we want our business to become and what our life will look like when it is entwined with the business that is what we imagine it to be, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to say, if I can, yes, and. So
Mhm.
vision, we tend to think of in the future, just as you were just saying, like, there it is, it's out there, I can imagine it. Maybe I can actually visualize it, I'm seeing it, maybe I can sense it, I can feel the emotion I'm going to hold. What I'm more interested in is, yes, like, let's go to that place and see the future. But then let's drop the outcomes. And I'll give an example of that in a moment. But drop the outcomes of it has to be in exactly this kind of building and exactly this number of clients and exactly what was the spirit or the feeling or the sensation you had around it? Can you hold the inspiration and drop the outcomes? Because when we hold the outcomes alone, now we might find ourselves in the present on a hamster wheel of, I got to execute to those outcomes. I got to execute to those outcomes. I got to execute to those outcomes. And we lose what's inspiring us. So I think of vision, I think of when we're really leading with vision, not just imagining the vision, but when we're
Mm.
leading with vision, we are able to, yes, look to the future and say, what do I really want? And for the sake of what? And get inspired. And also look to the past. Where am I coming from? What's my story? And also cozy up to what parts of my story are holding me back and what parts of my story are propelling me towards that future state that I want. Then you, just as you drop the outcomes of where you want to go and hold the inspiration, you drop the details of your narrative and hold that alignment of like, this is who I am. This is where I'm coming from. And how do you lead in the present, connected to who you are and inspired by where you're going? And if you can hold that way of moving when you are thinking about hiring, when you're deciding if this client is a right fit, when you're thinking about new markets to tap into, you will operate differently. And so that's what I'm really curious about helping clients figure out. How do I see enough that I've got that inspiration? And how do I watch for what are all those roadblocks that I'm tripping over in my story that maybe got me to where I am, but isn't going to get me to where I want to go next?
So there's a lot in what you're talking about there. Um, Walk me through. Is there a way to tangibly walk me through it? Like, give me an example of, a vision that's valid and, maybe, tangible that you've worked with or whatever, but then how you're saying, like, you can't have those outcomes create this, that you're working only towards the outcome and you're on the hamster wheel. Like, I
Yeah.
need to
I'll,
understand what that means there.
I'll pick on someone very easy to pick on, myself. So
Okay.
I lived for many, many years in what I still consider my hometown, Washington, D.C. But I felt somewhere deep in my bones that I was supposed to live in this place called the Hudson River Valley or maybe the Catskills. And I can tell you, I mean, this is the magical side of it. I can remember early in my 20s, I'm well into my 40s now, but I can remember early in my 20s reading a New York Times article about a couple from Brooklyn who bought a house upstate, and there was a ginger for $100,000, and it was a gingerbready exterior Victorian. I was like, yes, I want to do that. And they were getting more space and they loved being in nature. And that really appealed to me and my then boyfriend as well. Now he's my husband. And I just thought, I want this. So I can go back to very early moments and think, this is something I've wanted for a really long time. However, I was working. How am I going to go upstate? I'm not even living in New York City. That feels like, they were living in New York City and working, but still were able to go up on the weekend. That was not going to work for me. But as my husband and I, we have now 3 children. After our first couple of kids were born, and we created a vision board, and there's wood stoves and nature. We didn't say upstate New York, but it's still present. So here's what I was doing on my own. And by the way, in this case, this transition of moving from DC to upstate New York required a family system to say, yes, we're going to make this move. So it
Right.
wasn't just me on my own. And what I was doing was saying to myself, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. So this is now I'm efforting. I might have thought at the time, I'm visioning. I know I want this. There were good things that happened from that efforting. Like I learned how as a coach, I didn't need to coach people in person. This
Hmm.
seemed pretty radical 10 years ago.
Yes, a couple of years. Yes, right.
I mean,
Even 3 or 4 years ago.
that's
Right.
right. I mean, I can remember my very first client who was like, can we meet by video? And I was like, what?
How could we possibly? How would we make a
That's
connection? What I won't really get your vibe.
That's right. That's right. And so I put those puzzle pieces together and said, okay, I think I could do my work not having to be in Washington, D.C. So I was trying to find that way. But when it came to actually making the move, I can't tell you how many hours I spent searching on Zillow, and Redfin didn't exist up here, but there were certain real estate agents who had great websites, and I'm looking at houses because I'm like, the thing that's going to take me there is the house. Perhaps your interior designers know this feeling of like, it'll be the house that draws me in. In all that work and all those hours, that part of how I was spinning my wheels on real estate sites, really ultimately not productive. And I mean
Okay.
hours of it, because I was trying to say, I want to move there, so I need to find a house so I can move there. And then it'll magically happen. When I stepped back, and this was in part the visioning exercise I did with my husband, and also we started talking about things like, well, what's a transition look like? Not how do we get to the final outcome, but just how do we move together through something that is in process. And what ended up happening for us is we got clear on not what's the outcome of we're in the house upstate, but what's the experience we want to have. So we started to
Mm.
say, well, we don't want to just be in any old town. So we started exploring towns on vacation. We started taking our kids off season, not quite dead of winter because we didn't have an all-wheel drive car at that time, but we're going to go see different neighborhoods, communities, and think about what are the schools where our kids would go.
Mm.
What is the do we like be what's it like to be 30 minutes from town versus 15 minutes from town? We quickly realized we didn't want to spend our time driving in a car terrified we would hit a deer through
Yeah.
through the dark at 4 p.m. in dead of winter. That was not our vision. And so we started to adapt. And in the end, through this series of little mini vacations, and this is now over years, and our
Yeah.
kids are getting older and realizing school was going to be a really part of this next season of our life, which when I first started thinking about this move, I didn't even have children. We were able to see we would like to ideally we would like to have a house that has some land, not more than 15 acres, but definitely plenty of space where we don't feel like we're looking at neighbors. We'd also like this to be somewhere that feels like it's really immersed in nature. In our mind's eye, what we were seeing, what we were putting on our vision boards was a white farmhouse. That's what we saw. If you look up my house in the New York Times article about it, you will see it is not a white farmhouse. It is Pharaoh balls, off black. It's an octagonal shape. It's very different than what I was imagining as the outcome, but it's on a little over 5 acres. It's in the beautiful spot in nature. We're in this cozy feeling of a hollow with the mountains surrounding us on all sides, as you can see out my window. And it also had some other components that we knew we wanted, like outbuildings. We wanted the freedom and flexibility. We'd had a rental space in Washington, D.C. in our townhome. So I like having that ability of being able to rent if we want to rent, or being able to reimagine what those spaces can be. And so when we arrived on this property on a snowy day in April, which was truth in advertising, we 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 were able to look at a space that looked nothing like what we imagined, but see it had all the components of what we were wanting, even through leaking roof, like everything had to be redone in this space. But we
Mm.
could see we can bring this to life, to the kind of feeling and experience we want to have with our family, because we weren't saying we just need to find the white farmhouse that's in this exact
Right.
spot. And in fact, it was in our exact ideal location. And regularly we pinch ourselves still and think, gosh, it's 5 to 15 minutes for our kids to go to school, which is not usual in this rural location. We
Right.
can we can pick up butter at the grocery store, and it's 5 minutes away, not usual in our rural location.
Yes.
And we have incredible people, so that it doesn't feel like a place that we invaded. There's a real strong local community, and there's a real strong community of other people like us who've chosen to live here even before COVID, but also more of them after COVID.
Right.
And it just feels really special. I couldn't have picked that off of my attempts of I'm searching on Zillow for my dream house because I really want to move. It was through really in partnership with my husband, getting clear on what we wanted, breaking that apart, doing the legwork to start to see how do we get more specificity about what we want, so that
Mm.
when we saw it, we knew it and we jumped.
So I appreciate that story and that analogy because I get it. In other words, it makes me understand that the line there, you see the vision of the white farmhouse, and then you spend, and it's someone else could come to this and say, just keep searching Zillow. When you find that white farmhouse, you'll know it's it, right? But what you're talking about is more than finding a house. And what you're talking about is more than having a business. You're talking about having a house in your case, and in our case, a business that all the things align, not just the facade of it. So for you, getting doing all of the things that you did to understand the proximity to the town, the school, the amount of property you had, the type of buildings that were on the property. That is, if I get it, that is what you do with your clients to help us figure out what are all the details of our business, and don't worry about, does it have a brick and mortar? Is it on the third floor of your bedroom? Is it named Sally Smith, or is it named, whatever's design? You know what I mean? Like you want, but that's the hard part, right? Is getting to what does the actual day to day of, what does it feel like when I walk into my business? What does it feel like when I look across at either no employees or all the employees? Am I on the right track now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And there's so you want to be able to see, you want to be able to cast out and say, okay, what is the way that I'm picturing it concretely? So I'm not here to say just sit, just stay in the feeling of it forever. At some point, to be able to take action, we have to come up with our, this is my favorite phrase, best thinking. What is our current best thinking of what this will look like? But don't grip your best thinking as the only pathway. Use it as a tool to put you into action, but use your vision, including the feeling of it, including that inspiration piece, to say, this is how I'm going to start to make decisions of, am I still on the right track? And so it's a
Okay.
nuance of it, but that's what I'm always listening for.
Okay. And so, how do we as entrepreneurs, how do you coach the people that you work with to start this process of asking themselves? Because I just find that most people, like, I have my chairman of the board program, right? And it's a year-long coaching program. I work one-on-one with you, side by side, helping you. We identify the goals you have for your company. We set out a plan. We try and get to them by the end of the year, if we, whatever, right? But one of the questions that I ask every single person is, take a magic wand, tell me what your business looks like. And it's funny because it's all over the map, right? It's like some people are very good at tuning in of where they would like to be, and I love that phrase, current best thinking. I'm always like, we can change this in 2 weeks. Don't get tied up in knots about it, right? But a lot of people struggle with that question.
Yeah. And that, so I think about there, how are you holding the space? All of us, as managers, as designers, how are we holding the space for our clients? How are we holding the space for ourselves and the businesses? How are we holding the space when we ask the vision question? And so I'm going to ask it. So listeners, as you're tuning in, I'm like, if you can, if you're not driving, if you can put your feet flat on the ground, wherever you are, and I just want you to catch this. What is it that you really want?
Mm.
And when I'm asking this question, I'm just holding in the fullness of my being that whatever it is that you really want is possible. So just check in with yourself for a moment and notice, and I'm going to ask it again. What is it that you really want? What's happening for you? Are you starting to have internal chatter of, here's all the reasons I can't have it, or here's the things I haven't done yet today, or like, just cozy up to whatever is real and true right now. When you're hearing this question, wave the magic wand, right? Luann, your version of the question, wave the magic wand. What does your dream business look like?
Right.
And what I'm doing is cutting through when we have that resistance to all the variations on, I don't deserve it, I can't have it, I'm not good enough, no one will buy it, I don't know enough, I just need to know more. I'm cutting through that and saying, yes, you can. Let's honor, sometimes we have to cozy up, let's honor what's showing up, but then can we pick it up and put it aside and come back to, what do you really want? And now let's start from there.
Mm.
And that's different, but it depending on the person. I mean, as you're describing it, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's fairly easy to jump into. And maybe the work is really just, but let's hold a magnifying glass up to it. Let's see a few more details around it. Let's bring in some color. Let's bring in some time horizons to it. But oftentimes, especially when we're more nascent in beginning to build our businesses,
Mhm.
we or we're further in, but we're wanting to call in a big transformation. That's another kind of scary reimagining.
Yep.
when we're
Yeah.
in those spaces, sometimes we need a little bit more space holding, which is what I, as a coach, am looking to do, space holding, to say, okay, here's all those things that are making me uncertain. And now I can put them aside so I can still come to really clarifying unapologetically, this is actually what I really want, period.
Mm.
And then, yes, I can still change my mind later, but at least
Right.
I've put a stake in the ground on this is what I want. Because it's very easy to build to whatever you're saying you want to build. I mean, I don't mean to undermine it. And in this amazing podcast, there's all these tools and resources for how you can build to what you're saying you want to build. But if you are not clear first that this is actually what you want, I promise you're going to find yourself being like, why did I build this?
Yes.
And who
Yes.
wants to do that? Who wants to,
Right.
life is too short to spend the many precious hours we spend at work doing something that's not satisfying to us. I'm not going to do
No,
it.
it's true. I agree, and I think that does happen. I do think we end up, I've had a lot of conversations with entrepreneurs, design professionals, and window treatment professionals over the last 8 years, where they do sometimes find themselves at a spot like, "I did all the right things. I did the A plus B equals C, but what the heck do I have it for?" Like, it's not what I wanna do. You know what I mean? And it's not usually with designers, it's very rarely, "I don't wanna design." You know, it's designers are a very rare, passionately a group of men and women that are very attached passionately to their profession.
Yep.
It's very very rare, right? And I think probably you would find a lot of doctors and nurses that have that same thing because my theory on it is it's just too darn hard to do that you don't keep doing it just because it pays the bills. It's just too hard. There's too many steps, right? Um, but the thing is, so my thing is, it's rare that I've met a designer that has woken up and said, I don't want to be a designer. But I've met them where they've woken up and said, this isn't what I thought for my business. This is not how I thought it was going to be day to day. And to your point, if you don't have that moment and revisit that moment over the years, that is when you just end up creating whatever is in front of you because you're able to do it as opposed to designing it the way you want it to be, right, Sharon?
Yeah, that's right. And that what we're doing there is cozying up to what is real and true right now. So if that designer wakes up and is saying, okay, I know I chose this, and there's something still very compelling to me about design, but some version of, is this what it's actually like? Or I'm
Yes.
feeling stuck, like I don't
Yes.
see how to get out of the paperwork. I don't see
Yeah.
how to get support because I don't know how to create the systems. I've listened to the episodes, but how can I even have time to create the systems because I'm just doing the next client opportunity that's in front of me to make ends meet. Whatever that situation is, you have to meet yourself and your business where it is.
Mm,
Cozy up to what is real and true right now, and then ask yourself, what's my move? And so as a
mm,
coach, I'm always looking to empower my clients with choices,
mm,
including, even though, of course, I want for my clients to realize their visions, I'm not attached that your vision has to unfold the way you thought it would. So it's just,
mm.
what what do you want in this season?
Yeah.
What's the next move? What are you choosing now? And
Mhm.
maybe sometimes it's not about a vision for the whole business that might feel really far away from the moment you're in, but what's a vision? So let me ask you, Luann, what do you think is one of the most common pain points that designers you talk to are facing when they wake up and are like, this is what it's like, what do you think is a really common pain point?
I think it's the feeling of, they're you get out of bed and we're standing on ice. It's like not feeling like everything is locked down. It's like, did somebody tell the painter, give them the paint schedule? Did I tell them? Did I, and this client is going to want a refund on that. And this client is complaining about that design fee. It's like getting up and feeling like it's a five-alarm fire every day
Yeah.
and not feeling like there's a consistent, quiet flow to executing the projects.
Yeah. Yeah. So here would be a common false move that's going to get you in a spin cycle of like, if only, and I'm dreaming, and I'm not leading with vision in the present, is if you're like, oh, but like, what does my dream business look like where none of this is happening? Because there are some substantive steps that you have to take before you get to that place that is that dream business that you want to have. So if you're dreaming, visioning about that, you're not really tethered to where you are right now. You're not really dreaming within reality, which is what I like to do. So then in
Okay.
that instance, what I might say, and I'd be teasing this out with a designer about what are they really trying to do, but it's going to
Sure.
be more about, so what's your vision for how you're staying organized? Or maybe what's your vision for how you're tracking the client experience? And I'm imagining in both versions of that, we're not surprised. We can get transparency such that we can plan in advance. And now we're cozying up to. So where do you know how to do that? Where do you not know how to do that? I'm not there to tell, I'm not a consultant here to say, here's how you do that. If I have
Right.
tools and resources, which having done this for over a decade, of course I do. And because I manage my own business, of course I have tools and resources. If I have a tool or resource that will help, I will share it. But I'm not here to tell you, here's the silver bullet. And I'm wary always of anyone who does. What I am
Right.
here to do is to like really give you the space to see, I want to have something that changes. What does that look like? What does it feel like? What could it be like to actually not wake up uncertain of who's painting what today?
Right.
Now, how do we build towards that? And that's where you can drop out of, here's the vision of what I want in this instance, let's say for client experience, and say, so what are the strategies or bets, right? That's what a strategy is. We don't know if it's going to
Yeah.
work, but what are the bets I'm making? We're going to call them strategies for how I think I can get to that vision. And when I think about those strategies, what are the goals I'm going to set? Let's call it this year, because we tend to set goals in around a 12-month cycle. Okay. And then I'm like, great. What are the milestones I'm going to celebrate this quarter, this month that move me towards those goals? Therefore, what are the tactics I'm doing on the day to day? That's what I call the vision funnel. Vision funnels back to strategy, funnels back to goals, to milestones, to tactics. And when you can do that and move up and down in that vision funnel, then you can stay connected to that purpose, but see how what you're doing in your day-to-day connects to it. And that's magic. Now I'm scheduling a meeting to learn, or I'm doing research on different automation platforms. And
Right.
I see how that actually connects to me feeling like when I wake up in the morning, like I'm not going to be surprised by what's happening with who's painting what today.
Right. Yeah. I get that. What it is it's like, for me, it's always like, that's great, but what action are we taking?
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that. Right. And it's just like that nicer, actually.
Well, and so I would bet. I mean, Luann, you be honest, and you'll tell us. I feel like you will. I would bet you're able almost unconsciously to go up and down, just because I've listened to you on this podcast for many years. You're able to up and down and say, okay, I see the big picture now. I can drop into the action. What I'm doing
Okay.
is teaching everybody else how to do and learn so that they can have unconscious, hopefully competence, but you might have incompetence first, and that's okay. Because when we're aware of what we're doing or not doing, then we can start to call in the shifts. I
Got it.
think you're going to keep us honest. I'm going to give you space to answer. I think you're just doing that unconsciously. Fair?
So, I just want to make sure I answer it
Yeah, come
properly. So,
on.
what you're saying to me is, do you believe you're saying, I believe that you're the type of person that you can recognize up here that this is a pain point, blah, 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 and immediately drop into, right. And these are the three things you have to do to overcome it. And you're either going to do them or you're going to keep living in this pain point. Like, are you saying that I process that quickly?
Correct. That's my
Yeah.
hypothesis.
Yes, I would agree with
Yeah.
that. I would agree. Now, the key is to actually then schedule that call with my Doma studio to onboard. You know what I mean? Like, I agree. Like, I would tell you that I do believe that I move between them. Here's the big thing. And I go right to, okay, what do you got to do? Like, who are you kidding? This is in your hands. Like, what is it? And then let's understand that actual action level is a level that, yeah, I'm not going to tell you every day of the week I take that action the right, I might it might be the fourth time in 3 weeks and I'm like, huh, great that you keep having this vision awareness, you keep having the solution awareness, but you still got to do it, sweetie, like schedule the thing, right? So I would agree. I think my awareness moves quickly and the action moves. It's funny because things that I feel in my gut, I mean, that day it's enacted. Boom, let's go. We're doing a new thing, blah, blah, blah. This is going to solve a problem, blah, blah, blah. You and I had, an awareness breakthrough in the hour we spent. And I'm already like in the back of my brain, I can't process it now because I'm fully with you. But in the back of my brain, I'm like, when this is done, we spend some time on that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if by tomorrow I am on the Voxer with the team going, this is what's happening, because I will run quickly through it, because I think that is, you tell me, I think my uneducated observation of it would be, I feel like I have deeply cultivated listening to my own intuition. And when it's right, it feels right. And it's just like, that aha that you facilitated for me. I'm like, she just hit me between the eyes. Like, okay, now what are we going to do? To your point, now I'm already downloading. What do I do about this?
Yes. So there's the shift. I would bet there's a value for you somewhere of either efficiency or speed. Like there's something about that quick movement that I bet connects back to what you really care about. Fair?
Interesting. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So not everyone has that. I'm a little slower moving. I have a value.
Yes.
I have a value of freedom. So I'm going to get there, and I know I'm going to move, but I'm going to do all my considerations before I move, because I don't want to limit myself. Right. So we all have our variations on how it looks. But I want to sit here for a moment, because I think we can teach the listener something. So when you had, we won't talk about the breakthrough, but when you had, whether
we're not ready for public yet.
That's right. That's okay. When you had that breakthrough, or if you want to choose another breakthrough, fine, because I bet it's similar. Can you give us clues of how you knew? Because you've talked about, I'm cultivating my intuition. So how did you know? Did you actually literally feel it between the eyes? Like where did, maybe it was a physical sensation, an emotional sensation, a mental click. Like what did it feel like, so that listeners can start to think, what are my clues that I'm getting that?
I would say for me is, I always, for people who know me very well, they're going to be like, here she comes, because I feel and sense things in vertical lines in front of me. I'll be like, so this happened here, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here. And one of the things might have happened a year ago, one of them might have happened a month ago, one of them might have a minute ago. But what happens is, in the moment, they all seem like random bits of data. Let's call it that. Random bits of data. It's an awareness, it's an aha, it's a conversation, it's an opportunity. They don't feel connected to each other. And then the aha moment is like, bang. It's like, oh, all of these things that are completely quote unquote in the moment that have happened seem unrelated, actually all tie to this. Now there's extreme clarity around it. There's an extreme, in this case, it was, in most cases for me, there is a feeling when if I want to put a feeling to it, there's a feeling of I'm breathing. It's like, oh, okay. Like we did, I will share this. We decided, well, and I just put it on the podcast a couple weeks ago, that we're not doing Luann Live in 2024. That was huge. Like, you kidding me? I waited 4 freaking years to be back live again. Like, it was like, oh my God, right? And you could have never have said to me in the summer of 2023 that we would not be 24, 25, 26, 27. And there were these little things that were happening all year long. This here, that here, this here, this here. And then the nail in the coffin came with knowing I've been doing this podcast 8 years. 8 years I've gone to High Point every single fall. There's only been one time in 8 years that High Point was the last week of October. One time. And I know that because my birthday is the 16th of October, and every blasted year I have my birthday in High Point, which is amazing because I'm with all my friends. And when we were setting up the dates for the following that last summer for 2024, I'm like, I can't be November 1st, November 5th, November 6th if High Point ends the 27th of October. So I'm like, all right, fine. Now I'm looking at Jewish holidays. I'm looking at school. I'm looking at Halloween. I'm looking at everything. And I park it in October, the first week of October. And I get a phone call from a colleague and she's like, I just want to let you know, like, we're going to do our conference, like these dates. And it was literally overlapping. And I'm like, you are kidding me. Your conference is never then. She's like, I know, but I saw you say something about it. Just wanted to tell you. And so what happened was that was one vertical. There were two or three other verticals. And then there's this moment, and I'm just like, oh, the universe is talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
The universe is talking to you. And as soon as the solution, in this case, I had with you off air, there's no solution yet. But in the Luann Live, as soon as the solution was floated, like a solution was floated, I was like, bang, we're done. It's fine. I don't know why we're not going in 2024. I don't know if anybody will show up if we do it in 2025, but I don't care. This is right. This is what we're doing. And so it's a combination of awareness of data collection, that it all supports each other, even if they're all completely, vastly different types of data. And then there is a visceral feeling in my body. And that's the intuition goddess going, hey, baby, here we are. This is it. Don't walk out of this moment right here.
Yeah. And when you're describing that visceral feeling and the way you said it before, so just to make sure I'm still tracking, was like, oh, I can breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
Where can you breathe, Luann? Where do you feel
my
it?
whole body.
Okay.
Like I feel it. I feel like my shoulders just go. I feel it through my chest, my stomach. I like my head feels like it just drains down. It's like,
Yeah.
huh.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
it's
going to
nuts.
describe it for listeners because there's a clear direction that you're moving your hands, because I can see you here in
Yes.
this interview,
Yes.
which is down. Like, so it's a
Yes.
breathing, and I'm feeling like it's a grounding, like it's a breathing down
Yes.
and a relaxing, loosening up. I want everyone to hear this because, one, it's really important. We all have these clues, but we often takes us a long time to start to break it apart and be able to call it something more than it's my gut. It's a feeling. Like, well, what is that feeling? What are the clues of that feeling? I know that for me, when I know that something is correct, and it always sparks, just like for you, with an awareness, there's like, oh, something's just turned differently in the way I'm understanding something, because we
Mm-hmm.
can't change what we don't see. Okay, now I'm seeing something I didn't see before. There's the awareness. Then for me, when I'm ready to do something differently, the solution or direction or next move shows up, and what I get is in my chest, a rising up. It's kind of right
Oh,
around my heart
interesting.
center. And I know now, I mean, in the beginning, I was like, I don't know, that seems kind of nuts. I can't just trust a feeling in my chest. But I used my own scientific mind and said, okay, I'm going to like test this out. I've gone against that feeling in my chest. And I'll tell you, every time it's a mistake. Like that
Mm-hmm.
rising in my chest it's an awareness before my mind might have fully caught up to it. So I'm spending time on that, because when it comes to vision, it's so easy to say, I don't know, like, was that really the vision? Maybe, like, but I don't know if I can really have that. Now we're thinking about it. We're
That's
using
right.
our
We're like
brilliant
putting
minds.
obstacles up. Right.
And I'm just here to say, we want to use our minds. Our minds are really critical for the goal setting and even the strategy building, and certainly milestones, tactics. We need those minds, but put them to the side if you can, and start to listen for those other clues that say, yes, this is the thing I really want, and I don't have to discount it, because that is discernment. And we cannot run effective businesses without an ability to discern, is this right for me right now in this season? And in your example of High Point and Luann Live, this goes back to, remember I talked about our stories. You had 8 years of momentum building towards all these Luann lives. And then you had COVID and this break
Yeah.
of, and now you had
Yeah. Like,
4 years of like, I've just been wanting to do it again. And now I finally got to do it again. But that is, up until now, that's what I
yeah.
wanted to do. But up until now then is a clue for us of, but that doesn't mean that's what I need to keep doing.
Right. 100%. 100%. And it's funny because I believe, like, there's, look, I got 14, 15 people on my team now. Forget the Window Works team, but in my Luann Nigara Inc. team. And they basically go from 20 years old to probably just 40 years old. Maybe there's somebody 41, 42. So they're mostly all a generation or two generations younger than me. And what's interesting is the longer you work with me, the more you read me, because what'll happen is, if a decision sits, are we going to do it or are we not going to do it? And we can come to 2 or 3 or 4 meetings in a row over 2 or 4 months, and they will just say, so this decision here, where are we at yet? And I know now, I just like, no, I'm not where yet. I'm nowhere yet. Because I'm like, I've been getting data on it. I've been, blah, 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 but there's no clarity. And I don't worry about it because I know it will come to me. That's what I think in my 60 plus years that I have developed. I have a faith and a trust in my own gut instincts. And at the same time, I have literally had a conversation that, like maybe with your conversation earlier today, that the next day or 2 hours, sometimes in 15 minutes, I'm like voxering the entire group chat. Here's the new thing we're doing. And they don't even like go, wait, are we going to talk? No, they know the difference, because I know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I know the difference between, that's a good idea. Wonder if we should explore that, because I have those darn ideas too. That's a good idea. Should we do something with that? And then I'll bring it to people and blah, blah, blah. But then there's the one that's like, this is the thing,
Mm-hmm.
because you feel it. Like you said, Sharon, you feel it, and you have to trust it when you feel it.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself the honor of trusting your inside voice. You know what I mean?
Yes. And may we all be able to do that. And then can we begin to cultivate it in our people? Because so
Yes.
here you are demonstrating it and modeling it for 14 or
Mm-hmm.
15 people within your team.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens when those 14 or 15 people begin to learn this skill for themselves?
Right.
And how do you collectively raise the waters that you're sailing in? Because you
Yes.
have buoyancy and you have trust, you have speed of being able to
Yeah.
make moves, and you start to have language for how do you make transparent, where are we at in the decision making process. It's not just a linear, are we here in a go no go decision. It's
Right.
this is when we're looking to make a decision, but we're in a discernment phase. But this
Yes.
is one where we've made a decision and now we're in a project building phase. This is what,
Right.
and you can start to talk about it in a way where the
In that way.
intuition and the way you're making business decisions syncs up, which is
And the other
lovely.
thing, yes. And the only other thing, I want to mention a point that you brought out earlier, too, because I have been told by people on my team that have been with me for many years, like, whoa, just watching this is like getting an MBA. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is insane, right? But the thing about it is you mentioned earlier, like, you're different. Your priorities are going to be freedom, whereas my priorities is movement and get it done, right? And so I have noticed those conversations within the different, particularly senior members of the team, where it's like there has to be space for each person to recognize when their intuition is gathering, has gathered the right data, and don't like ignore your inside voice. But you have to honor how you move on it, right? Because I go to, here it is, like, my daughter, when she first started working with me, she's like, I never forget the first time one of those things happened. And like 2 days later, I come back to her and Nicole Heimer. I'm like, so where are we with that? And they're like, wait, this is a thing? And I'm like, wait, I said it was a thing 2 days ago. And they're like, but, but for them, different people on the team, you can still have that same, you feel your body go up, I feel my body settle down, but your next steps can be research, right? Can be something else. It doesn't have to be that you have to go into action like I do. Like, that's where we have to honor our individual
That's
natures,
right.
correct?
That's right. And we know all the research shows us that diversity of perspectives produces better results. It's why we need more
Right.
women in the C-suite. It's why we need more people of color in the C-suite. Diversity, and those are just external markers of diversity, but there are plenty of
Right.
internal markers of diversity, including neurodiversity. Right. We want to have that diversity of perspective. So if we can not just hold, we want to honor that everybody can have their values. And this doesn't mean that it's our job as business owners to realize the personal dreams of every person on our team, right? That might not be realistic. But I do think it's realistic that we can honor people can be human at work. And that means I can say, I'm seeing that you went from I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about it, let's go. And I'm now feeling caught off guard because I feel like I need a little bit more preparation to take action.
Exactly.
And so if we can say that, then
all right, you have 5 minutes. Don't worry.
That's right. But then to say, okay, so what do you need to feel like you can move?
Yes.
And that might for you, Luann, dare I say, be a practice in like, let me breathe because I feel like I already know what needs to happen. So could you please just do it? I'm just guessing. But
no, you know who's listening to this and is going to recognize herself in this is Nicole Heimer.
Oh.
Because Nicole Heimer is often my big ideas she's got to be involved in because it's going to create a landing page or it's going to create some blah, 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 right? And what I love about her, and she knows this, is, and also after 8 years, I will usually come in with, here's the decision, or you didn't even know I was thinking about this, but this is what we're doing. But after 8 years, I know now to say, so how complicated is this on your plate? I'm like, yeah. I think I want this by next week, and then it's like, and what I say to her is, what do I not know that I don't know? Because in the beginning, I'd be like, yeah, it's done. She's like, okay, sweetie, take a breath here. Look, we need to build a landing page. I need to know what the cart's going to be. I need to know the parameters. I need to have with a copy. But now I know that she's going to require a lot of information for my idea to happen. But it's like, that's the dance between us now. I'm like, okay, here it is. But now I will come back to reality and tell me what I have to deliver to you so you can make this creative, wonderful thing happen.
Yeah. And all of that. So everything that you just described means that you have a level of trust on your team. Oh, yes. You have right. So being able to share those kinds of things, you have a level of awareness of self and other with empathy. That's emotional intelligence. You have, and then you have an ability to make what's underneath transparent. So I'm feeling this way. It seems like you're feeling this way. Here's what I'm going to do about it. I'm just breaking apart what, again, you're doing with speed.
Yeah.
Here's how I bet this man, and I hope there are plenty of listeners who are like, and this is how it works on my team too. I would bet that they're doing very well, and they may be more evolved in where their business is, just in terms of age or stage. Doesn't mean necessarily numbers of years, but just maturity of the business. Here's how it often manifests earlier. And it can sit here and it can feel really awful. It manifests as conflict because it's something that's underneath the surface, but we're not giving space to bring it to the surface. And the feeling that whether we say it or not, what's a version of what's running through our heads is, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Right. That's what's happening when there's conflict.
Why did you put that on my plate? Why did you expect me? How could you expect me? You don't even know what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you see yourself in this, listeners, here's your move. Instead of asking why with judgment, which is honor perhaps that you're feeling that judgment so you can let it go. Because you can't ask the following question from a negative charge. If you are holding the absolute anger, frustration, overwhelm, fill in the blank, everyone is going to feel you, even if you use my special question I'm about to give you. But if you can breathe, tap into center, take a walk, right? All these moves we can make to bring ourselves back to a neutral charge. Then you can ask, what's important to you about doing it this way? What's important to you about doing this way? What does that get to? It's what you should have done in that first chapter. Values.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What's important?
Well, what I love about that is because that is how Nicole rolls. In other words, she has never one time ever said to me, you're out of your mind. It can't be done. Blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Right. She always is like, hey, what your idea is, the timeline is probably not realistic, but if you explain to me and describe for me what's most important about this, then I can attack that and we can figure out how we can deliver the rest. And then a lot of times I have to tell you, a lot of times I'll just say, tell me the real timeline because I don't know what I know. No, it's not like, it's like design. I
Yes.
don't know what goes into, and if she says, well, like maybe I said 4 days, she's like, the real timeline is 8. I'm like, I could do 8 days. I had this idea a second ago. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, but the idea is, to your point, in my experience with Nicole and the other people on my team, we're very fortunate. I know that dynamic. It's 40 years in business, lots of employees in and out the door, with Window Works and everything else. And I know that dynamic of everybody like almost protecting their own place.
Yes.
How can I possibly, how can you expect me this? Blah, 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 blah. But what I love over, in this next iteration of my business life, we all do just say, hey, that's probably not realistic, but tell me what really matters and I'll see if I can make that happen. And then we talk about, how to get the whole thing done,
Yes.
but it's having the right people around you, right? It's having the culture and attracting the right people who think and walk and talk like you and have that same vision and mission for your company,
Yes,
right?
they think and walk and talk like you on the things that are important. So like, and what
Yes,
you're
right.
describing, it's a willingness to experiment. It's a
Yeah.
willingness to share openly and with transparency what it actually takes to bring an idea to fruition. It's an understanding that we can throw out big ideas and not have to be attached to them showing up and manifesting in exactly the way I said, in exactly the time horizon.
Right.
What is not the same is how you're processing, how you get things done,
Right. Everybody's going to do that
who's doing the
personally.
idea generation. And I think it's that twinning of, we have the things that are really core, as you said, mission, vision, values, alignment, not
Yeah.
identical, but alignment. And
Right.
then diversity of perspectives that makes how you bring that mission, vision, values to life really fun.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, that's so clear. Yeah, you need the diversity of
Mm-hmm.
perspectives. You can't, if you all approach the things the same way. Like, first of all, it would all be boring. Second of all, probably 90% of it wouldn't get done. Let's be serious, right? Um, and so much comes from, I may be the one that actually walks in the room and says, "Ta-da!" But so much better comes from the collaboration. I can't tell you the number of times that Nicole has come to me and said, that actually can happen. And she's like, however, this can. And I'm like, wow, that's even better. Throw that other baby out with the bathwater. Let's concentrate on this one now, And so it's really, really something.
Yes, and just to integrate this to what we were talking about earlier with like, well, what's my vision for my
Mm,
life and the business and how they go in sync? Same kind of process on a micro level happening in what you just said. So you have a
mm,
vision for an idea you want to bring to life. That's, I mean, if I'm using this language, it doesn't really matter to me if you're using this language, but just to make the connection, this is my vision for this idea. And I want to do it in 4 days. And now you're making bets together. What are those strategies we're going to put in place to put Luann's idea to like test it out? What are the goals? Okay, well, as we're setting these goals, 4 days isn't realistic, but an 8-day time frame I think we could do. And here's the milestones we'll have in those 8 days, and here's the next steps, those tactics we're going to take. It's the same kind of process. And the reason I'm saying this is because leading with vision is happening every day. And so beginning to see what is the thing we're really talking about here? Am I clear on that? Am I bringing people aligned to that? Whether it is the agenda for a meeting, or the new product we're looking to launch, or the new way we want to do client experience, or yes, what it is I want for my whole life, right?
yeah.
In all of those iterations, you're still flowing through the same process of, okay, this is what I really want. How does it connect to where I'm coming from? How does that guide me and how I'm acting in my day to day? And so you start to
Mm,
learn this rhythm and feeling and way of operating for yourself and your people on, oh, we can actually move through our work and our lives, and it doesn't have to feel like a burden. It can actually be really fun. And I think
yeah.
that's what I'm after. I want that magic
Yes.
for us in our
Yes.
workplaces.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, to kind of tie it in a bow, the way you work with designers is that you could work one-on-one with the founder, the CEO, on helping them work through their vision for their business and how it aligns with their life, and really exploring that for themselves. And you also can take it to another level where if they do have a team, that you go in and you then individually work with the team members through the CEO. Like, you're not like, they're not hiring you. The CEO is hiring you to work with their team members and integrating them as human beings and their visions with understanding the CEO's vision for the company and seeing the alignment, maybe discovering there is an alignment. That also could happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? But better that it happens, and that, we don't have people bunking heads and not understanding. I like her, she likes me. Why can't we make this work? Right.
That's right.
Um, and then incorporating that whole thing and getting the team feeling like we all get it. We all know we're going. We know what the goals are, and we might all get there different ways. Like the people on my team, where they have all different personalities, the detailed people, the thinkers, the researchers. Like, I don't care what the heck they do in the background, how they get there. I really don't. I like, if they need my support in doing it or information, great. But like, nobody has to do it like me, right? That's the thing. And that's the discovery that you help CEOs do in figuring out the personalities and the drivers of their team members and how it aligns, right?
Yes, you've said it so beautifully. And the only thing I would say an and to is when it comes
Mm,
to the founder work, that CEO that I'm working with, that principal, it's dreamy. And I do partner with them on what's the bigger picture vision for the business. And sometimes I'm coming in and maybe you've got the vision and that's working. But you're like, what's my vision for my leadership? Because now my team's expanded. Or what's my vision for how I scale? Because I've been doing it as a company of one, but I really see the potential and I've got a wait list out the door. So I want a vision for how I scale. So the vision I'm working on with the founder will necessarily align with what they want in the whole of their lives and in the business. I'm not going to miss that. But sometimes the vision we're coming in to look at is more focused based on the stage that they're at. And
right,
then the
right.
alignment with the team follows. And yes, absolutely, so that we can bring that human side into the way we're engaging their people.
I love it. I love it. It's amazing. And so, and you have your own podcast
I sure do.
where you explore these concepts and ideas. And just like here, we have all the experts come and teach us all the different nitty gritty stuff so we can do it ourselves as we want. We can go to your podcast and learn about it on iTunes or Apple, whatever it's called now, and all the things, right?
You sure can. You can check out Design Yourself. And most of my shows are solo shows. And I am
Okay.
taking a single topic and breaking it way down. Like
Nice.
the art of incompetence. Like, what is it? Like, what's special about when you don't know? And I'm going to tell you 20 to 30 minutes. We're going to talk about what are some mindsets around it? How do you cultivate it? So, all of these micro topics that show negotiation, teaming. Yes, bigger picture like visioning too, but it's all these micro things that show up. And I've got over 200 episodes. And it is really, for me, an access question. Not everybody can hire an executive coach, but I
Right.
think everybody can learn from these tools and ways of seeing. And I really believe my mission, I believe the world will be a better place if we believe we can. And so I want to help with that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you are also, you do not normally do this, but you are offering a 90-minute, which I almost had to tell you I thought was crazy, but I know it takes 90 minutes,
That's
right?
right.
A 90-minute session with you.
Yep.
All right. That we will put the links in the show notes that they can do at $250, which is like a joke. I appreciate that. That's a major gift. And then that you also have a free download, which is a 5-minute vision meditation.
Yep.
And so I'm expecting that we should do that
Yep.
first before we schedule, just do that prior to coming to your session with you, right? Just have that little exploration,
That's
right?
right. So if you're hearing all of this and are like, wow, this vision thing seems pretty compelling, but I don't know, I've never done it. I'm telling you, 5 minutes. I've had over 500 people go through this process, and they're like, to a person, they're always like, wow, I can't
Whoa.
believe what I could see in 5 minutes. And then if after you see it, you're like, but how do I do it? Like, then you book that vision reading and we'll talk one-on-one.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness, Sharon, this has been so much fun. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and I admire you and your mission on this planet to help, entrepreneurs get in alignment, create the businesses that they know in their heart and their soul and their intuition is theirs for creating. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sharon.
What a joy to be with you. This was a long-time listener, huge fan of you, huge fan of interior design as an industry, and I'm just like, what a treat. So thank you for having me and for dancing in the playground together.